Welcome to Parry This and our Kings of England series, where we're exploring the lives of England's most powerful, ambitious, and yes, sometimes ruthless monarchs. Today we're diving into the life of King Cnut the Great, a king unlike any other in English history. Though Cnut's name may not ring out like Richard the Lionheart or Henry VIII, his reign changed the course of England, uniting it with a vast North Sea empire that stretched from England to Norway and Denmark. Cnut wasn't just a conqueror, he was a clever strategist, both on and off the battlefield, balancing brutal military campaigns with deft political moves. As we'll see, his story is packed with intrigue, legendary battles, and even a famous stunt on the seashore that is still remembered today. This episode is all about the man who tamed the tides, quite literally, or so they say, and ruled over a true Viking empire, bridging cultures and creating a kingdom that was feared, respected, and fiercely loyal. Stick around as we dig into Cnut's life from the beginning, tracing how he rose from the son of a Viking king to become one of the most remarkable rulers of his time. King Cnut's story begins around 995 AD in Denmark, where he was born into Viking royalty. His father, Sweyn Forkbeard, was the king of Denmark and an ambitious warrior who set his sights on England. Cnut's grandfather, Harald Bluetooth, was not only a king but a legend, known for uniting Denmark and Norway, and, in a twist of fate, lending his name to modern Bluetooth technology. This family legacy was a heavy one. From birth, Cnut was expected to live up to the larger-than-life reputation of his forebears. Raised in the warrior culture of the Vikings, Cnut's childhood was anything but ordinary. His life was filled with stories of raids, sea battles, and the conquests of his ancestors, and he was surrounded by men who had fought and bled for the empire his family had built. Early on, Cnut learned that leadership was earned through strength, cunning, and respect, and not just through birthright. Under his father's watchful eye, Cnut began training in warfare and governance. He learned to wield a sword, navigate a Viking longship, and strategize for battle, skills essential to any Viking king. His upbringing wasn't just about brute force, though. Sweyn Forkbeard, who was both a ruthless warrior and a sharp political mind, taught him the art of negotiation and the subtleties of alliances, knowing that a true ruler could control his enemies as easily with words as with weapons. By the time he was a young man, Cnut was fully prepared to carve his path as both a Viking warrior and a king, a fusion of his family's warrior heritage and his own ambition to claim and control lands beyond Denmark's borders. From a young age, Cnut was no stranger to English soil. The Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, fractured and tempting, were prime targets for Viking raids. Cnut joined these early incursions, honing his battle skills and learning the English landscape. But these raids were only a prelude to something far more ambitious, a full-scale invasion planned by his father, King Sweyn Forkbeard. In 1013, Sweyn launched an audacious campaign to conquer England. Known for his military acumen, Sweyn led a brutal, calculated campaign that saw English resistance crumble city by city. Cnut, now a seasoned young warrior, fought alongside his father, witnessing firsthand the strategies that made Sweyn a terror to his enemies. By the end of 1013, Sweyn had achieved what few thought possible, the conquest of England, forcing the English king, Ethelred the Unready, to flee into exile. With England under Viking rule, Sweyn claimed the English throne, marking a monumental victory for Denmark and an even greater legacy for Cnut to uphold. However, the triumph was short-lived. In early 1014, Sweyn Forkbeard suddenly died, plunging Cnut into a new and urgent struggle. As Sweyn's heir, Cnut was expected to take control of England, but Ethelred wasted no time, returning from exile and rallying the English to retake his throne. Cnut, still a young leader and untested in governance, found himself outnumbered and forced to retreat to Denmark, his father's hard-won conquest slipping through his fingers, but he was determined to reclaim it. For the next year, Cnut gathered a new army, this time with his own resources and the support of his Danish allies. In 1015, he returned to England, this time with the sole objective of securing the throne for himself. His campaign was met with fierce resistance from Ethelred and Ethelred's death in 1016 from his son, Edmund Ironside. Cnut and Edmund's forces clashed in a series of brutal battles, with both sides vying for supremacy. The two leaders were a stark contrast: Edmund, the young English king with a defiant spirit, and Cnut, the Viking conqueror with blood ties to royalty and years of battle experience. The conflict reached its climax at the Battle of Assendon in October of 1016. This was not just a battle of armies, but a clash of nations, ideologies, and ambitions. Cnut's forces, bolstered by hardened Viking warriors and skilled commanders, faced off against Edmund's troops, who were fighting to keep England in English hands. The battle was fierce and bloody, and by By its end, Cnut emerged victorious, with Edmund wounded and his forces shattered. The writing was on the wall. Cnut had won England. Yet rather than claim total victory by force, Cnut showed the political pragmatism that he had inherited from his father. In a historic move, he brokered a treaty with Edmund Ironside. The Treaty of 1016 divided England between the two leaders, with Cnut ruling the lands north of the Thames and Edmund retaining control in the south. This delicate balance, however, was short-lived, as Edmund died shortly afterward, leaving Cnut as the uncontested king of all England. With his consolidation of power complete, Cnut had achieved what his father had started, becoming not just a conqueror of England, but its ruler. This victory marked the beginning of a new era under Cnut's rule, where he would transform from Viking invader to one of England's most powerful and effective kings. Once Cnut had solidified his control over England, he set his sights on creating something greater than a single kingdom. He wanted an empire, a North Sea empire that would link the shores of England, Denmark, and Norway under his rule. His ambition for expansion led to a series of military campaigns that extended his reach far beyond England, and by 1028 he had not only secured his position as the King of Denmark, but also had conquered Norway, bringing all three territories under his command. This North Sea empire was an unprecedented achievement, allowing Cnut to wield influence over Northern Europe, and it made him one of the most powerful monarchs of his era. With control over Denmark, England, and Norway, Cnut managed to foster a delicate balance between these distinct cultures and territories. His influence extended across Europe, and he maintained strategic alliances, including ties with the Holy Roman Empire and other influential powers through both diplomacy and marriage. His marriage to Emma of Normandy, the widow of Ethelred the Unready, helped cement his position in England and demonstrated his political savvy, as it aligned him with one of the most powerful families in Europe. Despite his Viking heritage, Cnut governed England not as an outsider but as a king determined to integrate and stabilize the nation. He understood that his reign could only succeed if he could unite the Anglo-Saxon and Viking traditions, fostering a sense of stability and peace across his realm. Cnut's administration skillfully blended the customs of his Viking roots with the established laws and customs of Anglo-Saxon England. He preserved many existing institutions which gained him respect from his English subjects, while also introducing reforms that improved the efficiency and fairness of governance. Cnut's reign brought significant legal and economic reform. He instituted a clear tax system, and by consolidating coinage, he created a stable economy across his empire. He also enacted new laws aimed at strengthening justice and order in the kingdom, establishing fair punishment for crimes and protections for his subjects that set a precedent for rulers who followed him. These reforms were crucial in establishing a sense of unity and legitimacy, transforming him from a Viking conqueror into a respected and effective English king. Though Cnut was born into a Norse pagan culture, he was a devout Christian, and he used his faith to solidify his rule and align with the influential leaders of Christendom. His dedication to Christianity was as political as it was personal. By promoting the church, he gained the support of powerful church leaders and further strengthened his legitimacy in the eyes of his Christian subjects. Cnut was known for his generosity to the church, funding the construction of monasteries and churches, and even undertaking a pilgrimage to Rome himself in 1027. This pilgrimage was a strategic move, symbolizing his devotion and cementing his status as a European ruler of high standing. During his visit to Rome, he met with the Pope and various other rulers, securing favorable terms for English pilgrims traveling to Rome and reducing tolls along their journey. These actions not only demonstrated his piety, but also showcased his diplomatic skills and concern for his people's welfare, adding yet another layer of respect and admiration to his rule. Cnut's reign brought a unique period of peace and prosperity to England. His ability to bridge Viking and Anglo-Saxon customs, combined with his devotion to justice and economic reform, created a stable foundation that would shape English governance long after his death. By the end of his reign, Cnut had proven himself a master of both sword and scepter, a ruler who could inspire fear in his enemies and loyalty among his subjects, cementing his legacy as one of England's greatest kings. Cnut's legacy isn't just defined by the battles he won or the territories he conquered. His reign is also rich with stories, symbolic gestures, and significant events that add depth to his character as a ruler, making him not just a king, but a historical legend. The legend of King Cnut and the Wabe. One of the most enduring tales about Cnut is the legend of Cnut and the Wabes. According to the story, Cnut grew tired of his courtiers' excessive flattery, which bordered on worship. To prove the limits of his earthly power, he ordered a throne to be placed on the seashore. Sitting on his throne soon Cnut commanded the tides to halt, forbidding the waves from washing over his kingly feet. Unsurprisingly, the tide continued to rise, demonstrating that even a king could not control nature's forces. The meaning of this story has of course been debated for centuries, but it's widely interpreted as a testament to Cnut's humility and wisdom. Unlike many rulers of his time, he understood that kingship had its limits and that true power belonged to God alone. Historians suggest that the story was likely embellished over time, but it continues to symbolize Cnut's insight and realism, a king willing to challenge the sycophancy of his followers to illustrate his humanity. The pilgrimage to Rome of 1027. In 1027, Cnut undertook a pilgrimage to Rome, one of the most important journeys of his life. This wasn't just a personal quest for religious devotion, it was a brilliant diplomatic move that showcased his commitment to Christianity and strengthened his relationships with other European leaders. The pilgrimage allowed Cnut to meet the Pope and rulers from across Europe, including Conrad II, the Holy Roman Emperor of the time. By aligning himself with these powerful figures, Cnut elevated his own status and secured important agreements for his subjects. While in Rome, Cnut negotiated lower tolls for English pilgrims traveling through the Holy Roman Empire, a rare privilege that demonstrated his concern for his people's welfare. The pilgrimage cemented Cnut's reputation as a pious and respectable Christian ruler in the eyes of his European contemporaries. It also marked him as an international statesman, a Viking king who had earned his place among the great rulers of Christendom. Cnut's reign was notable for the relative peace and stability he brought to England and his North Sea Empire, allowing for a flourishing of culture, trade, and intellectual life. With the North Sea Empire serving as a hub of commerce, Cnut helped expand trade routes that connected England, Denmark, Norway, and the other parts of Europe. This fostered cultural and intellectual exchanges that enriched his empire, bringing new ideas, goods, and influences to England and Scandinavia. Additionally, Cnut's devotion to the church translated into active support for education and the arts. He financed the building of monasteries and churches, creating centers of learning and faith that would endure long after his death. These institutions not only strengthened Christianity within his empire, but also served as places where literature and historical records were preserved and produced. Cnut's contributions to education and culture left a lasting legacy, creating a foundation for future monarchs who would continue to build upon the progress of his reign. His efforts were instrumental in elevating England's cultural standing within Europe, blending the Viking heritage with Christian ideals and Anglo-Saxon traditions to create a kingdom marked by tolerance, prosperity, and intellectual growth. Through these legendary actions and significant achievements, Cnut proved himself more than just a ruler of nations. He became a cultural and religious symbol, bridging Viking and Christian worlds in a way that few kings had done before him. His reign wasn't just about conquest, but about laying down the roots of stability and diplomacy, and learning that would enrich England and the broader North Sea Empire for generations. By the early 1030s, Cnut had ruled over his North Sea Empire for nearly 2 decades. His years on the battlefield and the burden of leadership eventually took their toll on his health. In 1035, Cnut the Great passed away, leaving behind a legacy of conquest, reform, and cultural integration. His death marked the end of an era, and the stability he had worked so hard to create would soon be tested. Cnut's final years were filled with both triumph and exhaustion. His health deteriorated, weakened by the weight of managing his vast empire that stretched across England, Denmark, and Norway. In November of 1035, Cnut died in Shaftesbury, England, and was buried in the Old Minster at Winchester, a fitting resting place for a king who had brought England into his North Sea Empire. With his death, the empire he had built began to fray, as his sons and heirs jostled for power. Cnut had multiple sons, Harold Harefoot, Harthacnut, and possibly Sweyn Knutsson, each vying for different parts of his realm. These competing claims led to immediate struggles for control. Harold initially took control in England, while Harthacnut ruled in Denmark, but his division proved fragile, and the North Sea Empire started to splinter. By 1042, with the death of Harthacnut, Cnut's empire collapsed entirely, returning England to the rule of the Anglo-Saxon line with Edward the Confessor. Although his empire did not outlast him, Cnut's influence shaped England and Northern Europe in profound ways. His reign demonstrated the possibility of peace and prosperity under a unified rule, fostering a closer relationship between England and Scandinavia that would echo through centuries of shared culture and political alliances. Cnut's legal and administrative reforms laid the groundwork for future English governance. His codified laws promoted justice and fairness, and his taxation systems stabilized the economy, leaving a legacy of effective governance. His integration of Viking and Anglo-Saxon practices set a precedent for rulers who followed, influencing the very nature of English kingship. kingship. Furthermore, his religious patronage strengthened the church in England, and the monasteries and churches he built served as cultural and intellectual centers for generations. Through his support for Christianity, Cnut helped integrate the Anglo-Saxon and Viking worlds, forging a bridge between the two once divided cultures, the post-Cnut kingdom. The collapse of the North Sea Empire left England once again vulnerable to internal strife and foreign threat. However, the stability and reforms that Cnut had implemented endured, providing a blueprint for governance that future English kings would adopt and refine. His emphasis on justice, the rule of law, and fair taxation became integral parts of the English monarchy's character. Though his sons were unable to maintain his empire, Cnut's legacy remained embedded in England's social and political fabric. Cnut's legacy lives on not only in historical records, but also in cultural memory and modern portrayals. The story of Cnut commanding the waves endures as a symbol of humility, often referenced in literature and popular culture. Over the centuries, he has been featured in songs, folktales, and even modern books and films, symbolizing the intersection of Viking strength with the wisdom of a Christian king. His legacy as a bridge between Viking and Christian traditions has made him a compelling figure in pop culture, often depicted as a king who straddled two worlds, embodying the resilience and adaptability that characterized the North Sea Empire. In recent years, Cnut has appeared in various fictional works, from historical novels to documentaries, where his life is celebrated as a unique blend of warrior, statesman, and religious patron. In life and death, Cnut's legacy is one of unity, resilience, and cultural integration. His reign not only shaped England, but also left a lasting impact on the historical trajectory of Northern Europe, ensuring his place as the most complex and memorable monarch of his era. King Cnut the Great stands as a rare figure in history, a Viking king who not only conquered, but governed with a vision far beyond mere warfare. From his rise to power amidst fierce battles with England's monarchs, to his consolidation of a North Sea empire, Cnut transformed from a warrior into a statesman, skillfully blending Viking tradition with Anglo-Saxon stability and Christian devotion. His reign marked a unique period of peace, prosperity, and cultural integration in England, demonstrating his ability to lead with both strength and wisdom. Though the empire he created did not survive him, Cnut's legacy endured. His laws and administrative reforms shaped future governance. His devout support for the church strengthened Christian influence in England, and his diplomatic ties fostered a bond between England and Scandinavia that would echo for centuries. Cnut is remembered as more than a conqueror. He is celebrated as a king who sought unity across different cultures, faiths, and territories. Through the stories, myths, and historical achievements that define him, Cnut's life reminds us the power and responsibility that come with leadership. His legacy continues to captivate, not only as a chapter of English history, but as a symbol of resilience, ambition, and the bridging of worlds.